wait a second, this isn't the manual. Hey friends, welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk about my color grading process and show you my process from start to finish. This is going to be a bit more of an overview video with less detail on each of the actual steps. I just want to give you a bit of an overview of the workflow. So I'm going to be using these shots from last week's video of the 5-photo challenge as an example to show you my process. So if you haven't seen that video, link to it up here. It'll also be in the end cards of the video. Go ahead and check that out. But let's jump right in. So I edit my videos inside of Premiere Pro, which means I'll usually have a picture locked cut as a timeline inside of Premiere. So picture lock just means that I've finalized the edit and the pacing. It's important to do that now because once we color grade, we will not have the ability to change this. So with my cut timeline selected, I'm going to go up to File, Export, and then select the Final Cut Pro XML. Choose a place to save the file and then click Save and exit Premiere Pro. This saves the timeline as an XML file, which is readable by Davinci Resolve. I do all of my actual color grading inside of Davinci Resolve because it has some professional tools that Premiere doesn't have, and I want the highest possible color grade for my videos, so I'm happy to spend the extra time doing the round trip, using the tools, and whilst it might take longer, I like the results better. I'm going to open up Davinci Resolve, and I usually create a new project titled the name of the video and then hyphen color grade. Now I'm going to click Create, and inside of Davinci Resolve, go up to File, Import, and then select Timeline. Let's navigate to the location where we saved the cut, and then select the XML file and click Open. In the import window that opens up, make sure the Use Sizing Information checkbox is checked. That way, the relative scale between 4K and 1080p clips will be preserved throughout the grading process. Then click OK, and your timeline will be imported. So we're going to wait for it to load up, and then we can start our grade. Open the color workspace and grade the footage as you like. So my usual node tree looks a bit like this. I'll have a noise reduction node to start, then an exposure adjustment, which helps me to get from log to Rec 709. Then I'll have a balance node, then a look node, which is where all my creative stuff is done. And I'll usually put a parallel node to this to help me to control the skin tones because they often get a little bit warped by the look node. And after that, I'll have a global look adjustment node, and finally some sharpening and then some grain. So that's my typical node tree. If you want me to do a video diving more into how I actually color grade my footage and what tools and techniques I use inside of Davinci and how I put that into my node tree, let me know in the comments down below and I'll consider making a video of that process for you guys. For now though, let's stick with the overview and move on. So when I'm happy with the grade, I'm going to right click in the viewport and select Grab Still. This essentially just creates a preset for my current grade, and if I now go to the next shot and I open up my gallery window, I can right click on the still I just grabbed and select Apply Grade. And now it automatically copies all of the nodes from that grade with their edits applied to the new clip. So now I basically just copy and paste this grade over all of the rest of the clips inside of my timeline. And then I go through and I make specific adjustments if things like the lighting changed, or maybe I changed some camera settings which threw off my exposure, or maybe I used a different camera entirely. I just go through the timeline and I make the relevant changes where they're needed. So once I've done all the clips, I usually click on the lightbox button, and this shows me all of my clips in thumbnail format. This just helps me to see any glaringly obvious imperfections, things like lighting being off in one shot compared to the rest of the timeline, or maybe a hue is a bit different in color between one clip to the next. Just helps me to really expose those issues so I can go ahead and fix them before I export. And once I'm happy with everything, I'll go to the Deliver workspace, I'll select Premiere Pro XML from the presets list, set a file location by pressing Browse and then navigating to a location. So I usually create a new folder called Graded in the same location as the original XML file. This just helps to keep both of those XMLs together in an easily accessible location. And I usually save my graded timeline and my graded XML into that graded folder because not only will I get the XML file when I render it out, but I'll actually get all of the clips inside the timeline as the graded versions also rendered out. So there's actually a lot of files to store, and it's helpful to put them in a separate folder. I'll also make sure to check the render at source resolution box, because when you have both 1080p and 4K clips in the same timeline, this helps to preserve the relative size of each one. Otherwise, your 4K clips will look really zoomed in, or your 1080 clips will have a black border around them depending on what the actual settings of the timeline are. If it's 4K or 1080, it'll throw off the scale. Now I'll add to render queue and then click Render All. Okay, now go and get a coffee or read the gimbal manual or something, because this could take a while, but when it's done, go ahead and open up Premiere Pro. Go to File, Import, and then navigate to the graded cut XML file. Click Import and wait for it to load. Now look through the media browser for the sequence. It's going to be sitting somewhere in there amongst all of the actual clips. When you find it, you want to double click on it to open it. And now you have your final timeline all color graded inside of Premiere. And that is my color grading workflow inside of Adobe Premiere Pro and Davinci Resolve. Hopefully this video helps you out. If it did, let me know in the comments down below. And whilst you're down there, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, that way you don't miss out on future videos. I have a bunch in the works, all sorts of filmmaking and photography things. You are not going to want to miss out on those, so make sure you have the bell clicked. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next week, Wednesday. See you then.